sense, even though I think the whole price of oil was just completely inflated in itself, and it was artificially inflated. But now oil has gone up and down and up and down, and it's sitting right around 30 to 40. I mean, I haven't checked in about a year or two what the oil prices per barrel are, but last time I checked, it was like 20, 30 bucks again, and we're still paying $4 at the pump. That means that you're getting screwed.
Well, of course, and this California itself has a kind of what they call a secret gas tax, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it's like $1 or some odd cents just for the state tax alone. That's not including the federal tax. That's not including the petrol taxes. I mean, if you took out all those taxes, yeah, we'd be right around those gallons, about $1 some a gallon. It'd be about right.
Taxation is slavery any way you look at it, whether it's a portion tax or non-apportion tax. Because if I don't have a right to come to your house, or even if you come to my house and I tell you, hey, you're going to have to pay extra because you're making this transaction within the vicinity of my view over here, so you have to pay extra. Or I'm going to come over there and knock on your door and tell you that you owe me 40% of what you make every year. And if you don't want to give it to me, then I'm going to send guys with guns to break into your house and to lock you up in a cage. If the police officers and the government, rather than having badges and robes to operate in the capacity that they're operating, if they were using Tommy guns and three-piece suits, people would be in an outrage. But they're not, because they have a badge, because they have a black robe. We automatically just bow down and just say, oh, well, I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's always been. So, of course, here, I'm going to give you the 40%. I'm going to pay these taxes. I'm going to go do this and do that. People need to take responsibility for themselves and realize that they need to govern themselves. I hear a lot of people arguing back and forth between, oh, do you want Romney in office, or do you want Obama in office, or do you want this person? Government is slavery. You're voting for your own slave master. And I can even break it down from the Latin. If you go to the Latin and you open up a Latin lexicon, government comes from two words, which is gubernatio and mente. At gubernatio, that's why you have the gubernatorial elections. That's why the governor's office is called the gubernatorial office. Gubernatorial and mente, which means the mind. Gubernatio means to control. Mente means the mind. These are the two Latin words that government is derived from. Therefore, government is mind control. So you're arguing, who do you want to control your mind?
Well, now we see Hollywood. Another thing, Leo Zagami is going to be on the show here coming up in a couple of weeks with Brad Olson of CCC Publishing. And, here is an area where we're seeing a lot of mind control, a lot of Illuminati symbolism. Some people might say even for Freemasonic symbolism. But the one thing that happens in Hollywood is this music that might be considered mind control.
Did you happen to see my latest video about Katy Perry's Dark Horse, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and ISIS?
Well, I was just wanting to segue into that, because this ALS Ice Bucket Challenge has been going around, and they've been, the conspiracy around it is quite phenomenal, where we are talking about this could be some sort of satanic ritual or Illuminati type ritual that people are cleansed, that the reason why they're throwing it is to cleanse themselves so that they can bring in this new world order, or this new Dajjal order that even the Muslims have talked about when the Antichrist.
I have to say that people can feel something's wrong with that ice bucket challenge situation. They can't put their finger on it, though. I was watching some people say, this is a satanic ritual, and they were going, ALS, could it be the angel Lucifer Satan? Could it be Satan? And I'm like, just open your eyes, okay? There's nothing wrong with magic. There's nothing wrong with any of this. All this information is a cult for a reason, because they don't want you to know about it. It's not a cult because it's evil, but once you have open eyes, then you can actually start to understand what's going on. So I know the clock is a little bit off. I think we have about 8 minutes until we hit the break, so I think I have time to explain this.
Yeah.
So basically what we have going on here is, and you can take this in metaphor, or you can take it literally, or you can take it energetically. I don't know, exactly how this works. I know that there's a lot of energy work that goes on behind the scenes in order to make manifestations of certain events, and we do control our reality based on our thoughts. And when they can get the masses to think about a certain thing, or fear a certain thing, or do a certain thing, that it's easier for them to manifest an agenda. So the first thing that we have right now is ISIS. ISIS is the big threat. We have to get ISIS. We have to kill ISIS. We have to fear ISIS. ISIS is coming to get you. Be afraid of ISIS. Be afraid. What exactly is ISIS? Well, first of all, an Islamic organization wouldn't name themselves after an Egyptian goddess.
No.
Just that should be your first clue. Second of all, even mainstream media had to admit that James Foley beheading was completely staged and fake. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole to get into there.
That's a whole other ball of wax we can get into later.
Yes. Now, Isis is the goddess of wisdom. Isis is a benevolent goddess. She has been described as answering the prayers of the slaves and of the poor. She's a good guy. She's on our side. She's on the side of people. Mm-hmm. And so we are experiencing a consciousness shift as we're moving into this new age of Aquarius. And if a lot of people want to fear the new age and all that, it's scientific. I mean, it's all astronomy, where we have moved into a new age. There's nothing we can do to change it. And so everybody's like, fear ISIS, fear ISIS. Well, what does ISIS represent? Mm-hmm. ISIS represents wisdom and understanding.
Well, that's the logo for Starbucks, for God's sakes.
Yes, that's very true. That is very true. So right now we're invoking ISIS, but not only are we invoking ISIS, but we're invoking hateful and fearful energies towards her. And so if ISIS is a representation of wisdom, then we're invoking fear, hate, and disdain for wisdom.
For wisdom.
Yeah, which is the opposite of what we should be doing. Now that brings us to the Ice Bucket Challenge.
And when we start to manifest that, when we start to, the collective unconsciousness, because, I love talking about Carl Jung. If we start manifesting that, well, there's going to be this, what's the word I'm looking for? This kind of, when you bring things together, a collision of sorts, it's not a good sign. And that's not what ISIS is all about.
Exactly. Well, ISIS is the enemy.
Oh,
they're raising ISIS to be the enemy because there is something bigger that they're invoking right now.
Iris, right? It's not ISIS anymore. It's Iris.
ISIL or something like that.
ISIL.
Yeah. Did you hear? Now, I was talking to our general manager the other day, and did you know that 11 commercial aircrafts are now missing
from Libya? Yeah.
From Libya?
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing this big 9/11 thing next week with Alfred. I mean, could this be another? Could it be the CIA that took these things, or could it?
Let's hope the NSA doesn't take that out of context.
Well, yeah, we're now under FCC regulation. But no, it really made me think when my general manager told me about this. I was like, I didn't hear about it because I was kind of out of the loop, kind of getting things ready for the show, and it makes me wonder if we are now heading into another false flag. If we could could they load these things up? Because we talked about the Malaysia flight. Alfred and I talked about that, possibly that being retrofitted with a nuclear bomb.
Absolutely. And that's where ALS comes in as well. ALS is actually a Greek god called Alios. And ALS, Alios, very, very close together. And he was described as the son of Poseidon, and Poseidon was the god of the sea. And Alias, he controlled this floating island that wasn't actually an island. It was more like an aircraft carrier or something. He controlled a floating island where he kept the spirits, which were evil spirits that he can unleash upon the world at any given time, according to the commandments of the gods. And when these spirits were unleashed, they were unleashed in the form of wind, and they were released as horse-like winds. This is the way that they were described. So Alios is described as a horse god, as a dark horse. As a dark horse. Yes, it ties into that, because when you start listening to the lyrics of Dark Horse by Katy Perry, that's exactly what they're doing. They're setting it up for a situation where we're challenging ISIS by invoking Alios, and we're fearing ISIS and going into that darkness that Alios is bringing. And so ultimately what I think is happening is that there is a cleansing ritual taking place now, because there will be a nuclear attack somewhere, or it could be something to do with the air. They were talking about an airborne Ebola strain. It could very well be that, but I think it's more than likely that it's a nuclear situation.
You know what I just found out? This is ties. Did you know that the symbol of Aquarius actually is not pouring water? That she is pouring air.
I didn't know that. I've always believed.
Recently, and I was in one of my classes, and one of my professors said that to me. I was like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, it's a water sign."
I don't know. Jesus talks about
Aquarius is an air sign.
I didn't know that. See, Jesus said, Master, what do we do to prepare for the Passover? Passover.
Passover.
His people said, and they said, well, go down into the village, and there you'll see a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow that man to the house that he leads you into. And I always took that as the man carrying the pitcher of the water is Aquarius,
Right.
as is the house that he's leading us into, which is Aquarius. Which brings me to my analysis on who the new Messiah is for the age of Aquarius.
And who would that be?
In the age of Taurus, the bull, we worshipped Moloch, and Moloch was the god of prosperity and the god of fertility and all that.
Crops,
Harvest and crops and all that good stuff. And so we believe that we had to sacrifice a child to Moloch in order to have a prosperous year. And then our consciousness shifted because the age started to change, and there's always this big Isis wisdom that takes place. There's always this big consciousness shift that takes place at every age. And Moses came along, and he says, "Hey, don't sacrifice your children here. Sacrifice the ram instead.
Right.
Sacrifice the lamb." We're in the age of Aries now, and so the Jews are represented by the rams. But Moses also gave us a bunch of commandments on how to kill each other and how to enslave each other and how to sell our daughters for sex slaves, and that my wife is property, et cetera, and to go into other people's villages and take the women and children as spoils of war. I mean, it's a very, very evil book, the Torah, and the Bible too. When you read it, there's some good parts in it, but the devil's not going to come
We're
along.
going to do a break real quick here, so we'll be right back. Your Truth Frequency Radio Network. Also, you are listening to us right here on Kbeach at KKJZ HD3 Long Beach, Los Angeles, 88.1. We're right
having everything go your way.
Chris and Sheree Geo, Saturdays and Sundays on Truth Frequency Radio.
back. It is 9/14th, 2014. Gosh darn it, it is good to be back on the FM dial. We are broadcasting live right here in Long Beach from KKJZ HD3 Long Beach, Los Angeles, 88.1 FM Kbeach. Man, this is just rocking and rolling. It's now simulcast here at Kbeach. We're at Truth Frequency Radio Network. My name is Donny Gilson, and I do a little show here called 32 Degrees of Insanity. And a lot of people have asked me, why the heck do you call it 32 Degrees of Insanity? Well, a little bit of background on myself. I'm a 32nd degree Freemason. Yes, I'm not the evildoer that everybody says the Freemasons are. No, I'm a 32nd degree Freemason and a Knights Templar. So I am a crusader for not only Christ, but also for wisdom and esoteric knowledge. So I guess you could call me a Gnostic Christian of sorts. But, this show that we're going to be doing every Thursday night right here on Kbeach and also simulcasting live worldwide on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, we are going to have some phenomenal guests on our show. Coming up next week, guys, we are going to have Alfred Lambert Weber. Alfred Lambert Weber is one of the consultants for Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory. He was a judge on the Malaysia Tribunal when it came to the pressing charges against George Walker Bush, Tony Blair, Condoleezza Rice, Donald Rumsfeld, and Dick Cheney. They were all found guilty of war crimes in Malaysia. This was kind of a kangaroo court of sorts, but these guys cannot travel into Malaysia because if they travel into Malaysia, they will be arrested on the spot. So these are things that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about 9/11. If you've ever listened to Alex Jones or any of those type of syndicated talk show hosts, we are kind of like Alex Jones in a way, but we like to give a little bit of humor, and we like to, not be so serious and not any fear-mongering when it comes to this type of stuff. I'm a proponent, and Alfred Weber and I are proponents, of what we call the positive timeline. And the positive timeline, what we like to say is, the collective unconsciousness, which I talked about in the last half hour. Carl Jung talked about a thing called the collective unconsciousness. And so I believe humanity itself is heading down this positive timeline, and these evildoers that we've been talking about for the last half hour or so, ISIS, the